All right, so here we are on the Sorta Sports podcast. People for years have been telling me, Ryan, you got to start a podcast, especially about sports. And other people have told me maybe do something of movies. So I decided to mostly do sports, but like it says in the title, sort of. Basically, if there's any movies or random thing I want to talk about, I can. But first and foremost, this is a sports podcast. And most of all, it'll probably be MLB, NBA, and NFL. Probably NBA the most because basketball, as you'll find out soon, is my favorite if you don't already know and hopefully love me. So, I guess we'll start off with what just ended, and that's the NBA Finals. My prediction at the beginning of the playoffs was Bucks Clippers, which was also my same prediction at the beginning of the year. I thought the Bucks would beat the Clippers in the finals at the end of the year, and at the beginning of the year, I thought the Clippers would beat the Bucks in the finals. So I was pretty well set on seeing Kawhi Leonard versus Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Giannis Antetokounmpo is my favorite basketball player, probably my favorite athlete on the planet. So I was really prepped and excited, and I mean the Heat beat him, and I think that Heat team isn't really a fluke. I think after we saw what they've done against the Lakers, I think we now know they're legit and they're here to stick around. And I think there's a lot of interesting things that can happen for them in free agency that we don't really know what's going to happen, I guess, with this Heat team. Is it a fluke team like '04? I don't think so. But next year, I mean, the East between the Nets and, well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I really need to discuss the finals right now. So when it comes to finals, 6 games, not 7. I was slightly disappointed. Like, that 5th game was probably the best game because it really felt like the Heat needed to win. And they came out and they knew they needed to win. Like, that game had a Game 7 vibe. Game 6 did not have that. I felt like the Lakers were like, all right, guys, let's just end it. And the Lakers kind of came out and ended it. And that's nothing against the Heat. It's just the Lakers came out and they wanted to call games, so they did. And, I mean, it was probably the most competitive finals we've had since 2016. And it was definitely the most interesting. And it really sucks that a lot of people right now aren't really watching, whether that's because of political stuff or the fact that the MLB postseason's on, the fact that the NFL's on. Whatever it is, why ever you're not watching, it does suck because you're missing out on some pretty great basketball. And it was interesting. A friend of mine actually pointed out, he's like, I find it funny that, to be honest, I thought the second round was actually stronger. And it was kind of an interesting idea where he's kind of right. The second round was actually probably the most interesting part of the playoffs this year because the Bucks Heat was like, yes, it was a 5-game series, but it felt way more interesting than that. And the Nuggets Clippers, of course, was a 7-game series, 3-1 comeback, and that was great. And the Houston Rockets Lakers series was only, I think, 6, and that wasn't amazing, but I think it was a good series. It was probably the weakest out of the 4 I'm naming. But the Celtics Raptors, that was a great series. We didn't know who was going to win that. That was a good series. And to be honest, once the Raptors were eliminated, to me that made the Heat the East champs. I never thought the Celtics would beat the Heat. Just that Celtics team, I don't think this is their year. Maybe in a couple years, but that's all will come out when we talk about next season. So yeah, it was just an interesting thing somebody proposed to me. They're like, wasn't the second round kind of the best round? And I was like, you're probably right. Like, the finals was probably the second best round, I'd say. And then the conference finals, and of course the first round was probably the weakest. Really the only must-watch series in the first round was the Thunder Rockets. And I'm still sad the Thunder lost because that was a fun team. But finals overall, where does this put LeBron? I think that's the big question everybody's asking. Is legacy-wise, where is he now that he has 4 championships? And I was like reading an article on ESPN where they were basically like surveying the guys around the office, and the consensus was almost like 60% of them were like, no, he can't beat Jordan. And 70% of them, like once they started breaking it down, was like, oh, it's because of rings. And there was a lot of different reasons people outlined. And to me, LeBron's a weird one where I've gone back and forth. When I was younger, I thought after 2016 he was just the best ever. And now that I'm older and of course I've watched The Last Dance, so I think Jordan's great because of that. But I'm saying overall, there's a lot of things Jordan has done that really, the 6 rings, I mean, that's really it. It's really difficult to say, well, LeBron's going to go down as probably the statistical GOAT. He's probably going to have the most points, some of the most assists. He's going to be like top 10, maybe top 5 in assists. Probably top 5, to be honest. He's probably going to be number 1 in scoring. He's going to probably score more than Kareem. He's going to be probably within top 25 triple doubles. I mean, he's going to be in the top 5, probably I think he's above top 5. I think he's definitely probably top 3 for playoff points. He's going to have some of the most finals appearances ever. He's going to have probably 5 rings at this rate. I feel like the Lakers might be able to get it done, but really it just depends on when LeBron retires. I think he's definitely going to retire at a point where he can get the points record. I feel like that really puts him up there. And I think he's very much the clear number 2. I think, and people can say Wilt and Bill and Bird and Magic, and they're all great players, but to me there's 3 GOATs. It goes Jordan, then LeBron, then Kobe. Everybody else is after that. Those are the top 3 greatest players of all time. And why LeBron over Kobe, you ask? Well, LeBron has been the best player on every championship team. He's got the stats over Kobe, and he only has 1 less ring, whereas Kobe had Shaq, and AD might be on the level. I don't think AD's on the level of Shaq. Maybe, but I don't think so, at least not at this moment. So I give LeBron the edge because I think LeBron's 2016 championship almost counts as like 2 championships. It's so storybook with the 3-1 comeback and everything, and that's not just because I'm a big Cavs fan. I think it's just a really great story. And I don't know if Kobe's, especially like 09 title, like the 09 title was really just a walloping on the Magic. Nothing against that Magic team. It's a good team, but they were no match for Kobe and Powell. I don't know. I just personally put LeBron over Kobe, and I think most people do. So, entire playoff, the bubble, when the fact that we might not be coming back till next season. Yeah, I don't know exactly what to think about that because my thought process is if they keep delaying the season, eventually we're going to get to a point where the season's just never going to be the same. We're always going to be starting in January or something. And I liked the proposal of starting on Christmas Day. I think it's a great plan. And maybe you do what the MLB does. They go no fans until you're allowed to have fans. But whatever you do, I would like to see it start Christmas Day, but right now they're not leaning towards that. But at least maybe 2022. If you're going to change the season and make it like you start around January-ish, I would start on Christmas Day every year because most casual NBA fans, that's the first game they watch, are the Christmas Day games. Like your real NBA fans, they're watching before that like me, but most people start watching on Christmas Day. The bubble was cool. I think everybody just enjoyed all the players' interactions, like Matisse Thybulle's vlogs. And I'm saying you get a lot more player personality because they're all together. It's just nothing but basketball in their minds. And I think a lot of guys expressed themselves a lot. And people were kind of interested, like, in what was happening in the bubble. It was kind of a mystical type deal. Maybe that sounds dumb. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It felt like otherworldly. Like, people were interested in knowing what was going on in the bubble. Now, free agency. Giannis, of course. People have been telling me he's going to be traded. Other people have been telling me they don't think at all he's going to be traded. People are saying he's going to leave. Personally, I think one of 2 things will happen. I think he will either stay here or he will be traded and leave, and he will come back. I don't think he's going to be traded or leave and never come back to the Bucks. I think this is a LeBron situation because he seems to really have a connection with Milwaukee. And I think if he left, he would come back. Like he'd leave. Let's say he goes to a random team. He goes to the Seattle Supersonics, okay? He goes to Seattle Supersonics. Obviously, the Sonics don't exist, so I'm using them as my example. And he wins 2 straight rings, back-to-back times. His contract runs up with them. He comes back to Milwaukee and tries to win a championship with them. Maybe he does that, or he just sticks it out in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee tries to go get somebody. I just got the report from Bleacher Report that apparently they're not interested in Chris Paul, which sucks to me because I feel like he'd be a great fit for that Bucks team. But I mean, they probably know what they're doing. The Bucks have structured a great team around Giannis. The way that team plays, about how it's all about spacing around Giannis. They have a really good system. The only thing with that system is if you have a super, super special type of player like Bam Adebayo who can stop it, and you have a bunch of perimeter. If you have a bunch of guys who can guard perimeter and shoot, and a big guy who can go with Giannis, you can beat them. Granted, those pieces are hard to get, but if you're special and lucky enough to get it like Miami was, you can beat the Bucks. It's very hard to get, but they are beatable. So that's the only thing is, to me, Giannis has to choose if he's Jordan or LeBron. Jordan stuck it out, and they built a team around him. or he can be LeBron and he can go win and then come back and teach the other guys how to win. It's really whatever you want, I think. His legacy, I don't think, will be affected negatively, but I would, of course, like to see him stay. I really would, and I don't think he's going to leave. That's my final statement. I don't think Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to leave the Bucks. As for other guys, Bradley Beal, Victor Oladipo, Danilo Gallinari is free agent, probably the top free agent because we all know Davis isn't leaving LA. Speaking of that, how many rings, I was thinking this, how many rings do LeBron and Davis get? Because next year, I think the finals, if I had to blind stab right now, if KD comes back 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, as good as usual, I think it'll be Nets, Lakers, and I think that would be crazy for LeBron to, if he wins it over the Nets, I think that makes him and Jordan very close. As I said before, I think he's still second. If he gets 6 rings, I think he becomes the GOAT. He gets 5, it is super tight, and it's really just a matter of opinion. I think right now it's very clearly Jordan, though. But if he went back-to-back with the Lakers and beat them over the Nets and the Bucks especially if the Bucks added another big guy, that would be huge. But Bradley Beal and Victor Oladipo are guys people are talking about moving. I don't think the Wizards are going to move Beal until, like, the trade deadline. I think they're going to see how Wall plays, and if Wall's not the same as usual, you're going to see Bradley Beal traded. And I feel like this will be a topic I'll be talking about in 2 months, is where should Beal be traded. And right now I'm going to say the Nuggets would be kind of sweet, but they'd probably have to give up MPJ. Thing is, though, if you add him, I think that puts the Nuggets over the top as a championship team. Danilo Gallinari, free agent, probably the biggest free agent, I'd say. I think him in Miami would be deadly. I don't know if that pushes them to championship level, but it might. I think that puts them definitely in the Eastern Conference Finals every year, that spacing. But I don't think that team, I feel like the team needs something a little bigger than him if they're really going to get over the hump. If you had a Joel Embiid to that roster, if they could somehow swindle the Sixers out of him, I think that makes them easily the NBA champions. But Danilo Gallinari and Joel Embiid are very different. So, yeah. Victor Oladipo wanting to leave Indiana, I buy it. I don't think that system fits him now. I think they're going to get a new coach, and I think they're going to trade him off. And to be honest, I don't know where he's going to go. Victor Oladipo's a weird one. He's like, he hasn't been playing as well as he did back in 2018 when he won Most Improved Player. So he's kind of a risk, but I don't think he's going to go to a bad team. He's probably going to go to a good team. One thing I thought of is maybe New Orleans. If Brandon Ingram left, Brandon Ingram is probably, well, now that I think about it, the best free agent. I kind of forgot he was free agent because he's restricted. I think the Pelicans probably match any offer, but what I think of Brandon Ingram if he gets a 5-year crazy deal, I guess it'd be a 4-year, with the Hornets, he gets a 4-year crazy deal with the Hornets. I mean, are you really that worried about it if you're the Pelicans? You got Lonzo, you got Zion, and if you could snag Oladipo for some stuff, I feel like I don't know, I feel like it's a little weird to build Zion and Ingram at the same time. I think if they can keep him, they will, but if it's going to be a hassle, I think they'll probably just let him walk. But I guess these are all things we'll be seeing soon. Final thing about NBA we'll talk about is the draft. The Cavs, of course, have the 5 pick, and the Timberwolves trading for the number 1 pick. I definitely think the Knicks is all the news you're hearing about, is the Knicks want to trade for that number 1 pick, and that doesn't surprise me. I can completely see LaMelo Ball running that Knicks team with RJ Barrett, and if Barrett's not living up, then they're going to get rid of Barrett, or if Barrett lives up, then they got him and LaMelo. I think that's probably what's going to happen, and I'm guessing that deal looks something like Kevin Knox and a couple picks, like the 8th pick, Kevin Knox, maybe an unprotected or top 3 protected first, and that would probably be it. Maybe they wouldn't move Kevin Knox. Maybe they wouldn't, but that, I don't know. I'm not a general manager. I'm just a guy who's talking into a microphone, so I'm not 100% sure. But it'll be interesting. I could definitely see LaMelo going to New York, and I think that's what most people are thinking. As for 2 and 3, the Warriors, they're taking Wiseman. I don't think they're going to trade. I think they're just going to take him straight up. And the Hornets is when it gets interesting. I think they're probably going to take Edwards, and they could have a really crazy offensive duo with him and Devontae. So that'll be interesting. And PJ Washington's solid at the defensive end, and he can definitely improve on the offense and get better. And I mean, if you sign Brandon Ingram, that's That's a pretty solid. I mean, that's a good future right there. Which is weird to say about the Charlotte Hornets, but that's a pretty solid future. Then you got, of course, the Bulls. They finally got a top 5 pick. And this Bulls team, I think, is probably going to be a playoff team next year. I'm a pretty big fan of Billy Donovan. I like what he does. So I'd say the Bulls, I'm not 100% sure who they pick. This draft's a weird one where I feel like we might get a couple stars, but it's not like last year where it was pretty cut and dry who were going to be like your top picks. This year it's kind of a toss-up. I think the Cavs are going to take Obi Toppin at 5. So I guess that'd mean at 4, I think the Bulls will probably take Denny and Njata or Avita. I'm not 100% sure how you say it, but probably the European kid or Onyeka Okongwu, the big defensive beast. But I'm guessing the European guy because they want him to be like, hopefully he's the next Luka for them, or the Bulls can get something really solid. Because they have a lot of solid pieces, but I don't think they have that one guy to build around. You can make an argument it's Zach LaVine, but Zach LaVine feels like a 2 to me, not a 1. So I guess it'll be interesting once it comes draft night. As for the Pistons, one of the worst teams in the NBA, I'm not going to lie, I just get the vibe that they're just going to tank till they get Amani Bates. I think Amani Bates is going to be like the number 1 pick for them in like 2024 NBA draft. Well, I guess it'd be 2023. It would be the 2023 NBA draft because he is going to be a senior in 2022. He'd go to college. Yeah, 2023 NBA draft. I think they're just going to suck for the next couple years. And to wrap up, coaching, Mike D'Antoni. I'm interested to see where Mike D'Antoni goes. I'd love to see him go to New Orleans. I think that's interesting, but I don't think they're going to do that. Pacers would be crazy interesting, see him work with a bunch of big men. I feel like they might trade Turner then and try to get a guard, but I'm not sure. As for Harden and Westbrook, I think Harden might be on the move. I think Houston might just kind of go Oklahoma City Thunder on it. They haven't made a finals with him yet, and it's been 6+ seasons. I mean, I think they might move on from Harden. I know the city of Houston loves him, but when there's guys like the Sixers who are probably going to be willing to give up Ben Simmons or Joel for him, and you can find a good deal. I saw one where it was like the Knicks give up their pick and some stuff, and then like I think Kevin Knox might have been in that deal, and then the Rockets give them Westbrook, and then the Sixers give up Ben Simmons and a couple other stuff, and then the Rockets give them Harden. I could see that. Kind of blowing it up and going young. I could also see them just trying it again next year. Maybe they run it back. But I feel like that team's hard to run without D'Antoni. And I feel like once you fire D'Antoni, you make the statement. You're going in a different direction. As for D'Antoni, like I said, Pacers would be crazy interesting. And so would the Pelicans. Now moving over to MLB. Great stuff happening. If you're not watching this postseason, you are missing out. It has been great. The Rays are like the most likable team in baseball, and the Dodgers, to me, are one of the most hateable teams, and the Braves are super exciting, and the Astros, no one likes them now. So it's really fun because, the Rays are going to be playing again tonight. Tonight I'm recording this on the 14th, and so it's really exciting because if the Rays win tonight, they go up 3-0. They go up 4-0. If the Braves win tonight, they go up 3-0. If the Rays win tonight, they're going to sweep the Astros and be on the way to the World Series, which would be sweet. So I hope that happens. My pick is if the Braves beat the Dodgers, which I think they will, I think the Braves are probably going to win the World Series just because they've been looking unstoppable, but the Rays have been looking unstoppable. I'm not sure. It'll go 7. I'll be talking about it again on the podcast. I'm not 100% sure. Right now, I guess I will say my heart says like Rays. Like I have this gut feeling about the Rays, but a part of my brain's thinking it might be the Braves just based off what I'm seeing. But if I really had to pick, I feel like the Rays are going to win the World Series. It just feels like it's their time. And I feel like the Braves are going to be around the next couple seasons. It's been great though. The Rays, I was saying, it's like they had to go through all the mean teams. They went through the jerk Yankees, the cheater Astros, and then I was thinking they were going to have to play that Dodgers. The 3 teams I really don't like. But no, it looks like they're going to be able to play the young, fun Braves. All right, I guess we're going to wrap up with NFL. Gridiron Heights made a skit, and it was like an Among Us style spoof. And it was like, who's the fraud? Like, who's really faking this season? And they all voted out the Bears, which I thought was pretty funny. But the two teams that are interesting to me are the Raiders and the Browns. I think the Browns are legit this year. And I'm not trying to be hyping them. I'm serious. Like, I think the Browns legitimately got it together, and I think the Steelers game is going to decide it. If they beat the Steelers, I think this immediately makes them an AFC championship contender. I still think the Chiefs are coming out of the AFC, but I could see the Browns beating some teams in the divisional. This Browns team's legit, and I think they really got it together this year. As for the Raiders are interesting because they just beat the Chiefs, but I don't think they're anything more in a wild card. I think they're the wild card, and they probably maybe win, maybe they somehow squeak by, but they get beat in the divisional. I don't think this Raiders team is super legit. They're better, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they have the arms to go. Whereas the Titans are legit. I think the Titans could go far, but granted, I'm naming a bunch of AFC teams, so one of them has to eventually lose in the playoffs, and I feel like the AFC title this year will probably be the Ravens Chiefs or the Browns Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs will win regardless. Maybe the Browns can squeak by, and if so, I'll be going to the Super Bowl. But that's all for now. I'm going to go eat dinner and watch some baseball. You guys got to be watching the MLB because it is great. Have a nice time. This week was pretty sports heavy because there's a lot of movies and stuff that's been delayed lately. So it was a pretty much straight up sports podcast this week. Talked a lot about NBA, bit of baseball, bit of NFL. Really went on a while about the NBA. All right. See you all later.